Joining us is Amca CEO Jai Malik, and in the private markets, this space is alive and well, right? We've talked so much about reindustrializing America. Help me understand what Amca is. You know, it sounds like contract manufacturing for the industries, defense technology, aerospace, that are at the forefront of what's happening right now.
Absolutely. So what Amca is actually doing is we're developing and then manufacturing critical components, not just contract manufacturing, for critical readiness and production gaps that our customers have. And so typically these components, there's only a single source for in the country, unlike other contract manufacturing categories. And our business designs these components, qualifies them rapidly, and then manufactures them. So it's a little bit different than your typical contract manufacturing business, which is just a machine shop you're looking to produce at scale.
Jay, case study, wire harness, right? That's something we talked about a lot in this program. Heavy dependence in that case study on China. Give me a similar product, a similar sort of component that you are solving for, where there might be a reliance on an external country to get it.
Yeah, I'll give you two examples. One example are the sensors that we put onto our, put onto almost all of our industrial platforms. Today, a lot of those sensors are sourced. The sensing elements are sourced from offshore, offshore companies and nations allied with them. So that's one example. Another example would be, capacitors and other passive electrical components. These are often components that have been offshored, to Asian countries over the past 2 decades. And America today has a very low, dwindling supply base for these types of engineered components. And so those are two examples of areas where we are designing in the country and then manufacturing in the country those components for the warfighter.
Jay, I just have a few rapid fire questions, if I may. What year did you found this company?
2024 in November.
2024 in November. And is this $1 billion valuation post-money or pre-money?
That is post-money.
So in about 18 months, you've founded, launched, and scaled up this company and got to $1 billion valuation. What should I infer from that, the pace at which you've done that?
You should infer that we're living at, I would say, the largest gap between what America needs and what America is able to produce in generations. It's a generational opportunity for folks who are looking to build in this country. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, you will see a lot more manufacturing companies in America building for America. And we're just sitting at the forefront of this, I think, immense growth curve that's coming and is already happening in the nation, both for defense and aerospace customers, as well as in other categories like AI infrastructure, energy, robotics, et cetera.
Jay, who are your customers?
Due to the sensitive nature of the work that we do, I can't disclose any specific names. But some of the names that we have been able to disclose are Boeing, Airbus, Honeywell, Lockheed Martin, and then certain branches of the military. But all of our components today, they go onto platforms we all know about: 737 MAX, 777, F-35s, F-15s, F-16s. Our tanks, Mk1 Abrams. So there's plenty of different platforms that we're on today that the country actively uses.
It's interesting. We've probably spent a lot of time understanding some of the problems that those customers that you've just outlined have. But probably of Amca, it's better to talk about what your constraints are, where the bottlenecks are for you in your own supply chain.
In our own supply chain, there are certainly, big gaps right now at the sort of like infrastructure level. Like I mentioned, for sensors, for example, we need sensing elements. These are highly precise, elements that go into sensors that the country doesn't have a lot of suppliers for. So in those cases, we're taking a new approach. We're vertically integrating a lot of our supply, designing that in-house, and then manufacturing it in-house to solve gaps where the domestic supply chain is not able to supply those components.